Good afternoon, my visual journaling friends. I thought I'd stop by with a quick, fun video lesson for creating some really simple visual journaling pages. I'm sitting here just working in my regular sketchbook that I keep lots of notes and sketches and practice pages and my morning pages all in the same place. And I wanted to show you one of my favorite techniques for creating simple yet meaningful pages that use our own handwriting. And I've really been loving this method. So I've been doing it quite a bit. Here's a couple more of these pages where I've created and done these kind of crazy mixed colors. There's one of my canyon collages. So here was one where I started and it went a different direction than I thought it might. Really enjoyed this one. Was also inspired by some of the reading and writing we were doing this month. But I realized when I started thinking about the Barry Lopez piece about his trip down the Grand Canyon, or just thinking about traveling through canyons in general, thinking about where I am currently in Estes Park, Colorado, and every time we travel down to the town where we'll be living in Loveland, Colorado, we drive through this gorgeous canyon cut by water through a beautiful mountain stream where all the snow is starting to melt. And I started thinking about animals in the canyon, and Barry Lopez mentions a few of those different animals. And the one that popped to mind, because I recently found a book at the used bookstore about it, was cougars or mountain lions, depending on where you live. They call them different things. For me, they're mountain lions. They have tremendous ranges. They're very solitary. You rarely see them, and you don't really want to see them in a wild. But this process is super simple, but there's something about the effect that I find very pleasing. And if you're getting used to doing mixed media and looking for some simpler ways to get started without having to use a lot of supplies, this is a great way to do that. So I knew I wanted to find a mountain lion template. So I just Googled mountain lion. I often will put coloring page or template in my search, coloring page or template in my search, to find things that are really simple. This one was pretty with the patterns. I could have just cut this one out, glued it on my page with some matte medium and painted it. But instead, I use this as, and again, these are free, readily available images that I'm using. They're not copyrighted images, and I'm not reselling them. So I'm very careful about the templates that I start with and then make them my own. But I simply took a graphite pencil. This one is a jet black, but any number 2 pencil will work. And I colored over the outlines on the back to create basically my own graphite paper. I made a clean sample. I will post this one in the classroom for you as well, that you can print out. So this is a relatively large journal. This is a 9 by 12. You may be working in something small, so print it out to whatever size it is that you need, and then use this color on the back of this with your graphite. Anywhere where there's lines, you're just going to put the black, and then you're going to trace over it. So if I went over here and just, a ballpoint pen actually works better, but a sharp pencil will work. And then you can see I've got his nose just enough that I can see it, right? I've got the nose just enough so I can see it. So I would do that. That's how I got my cougar on here. This was my first draft. I didn't quite get all of my lines right. So, I've come back in and sort of fixed some of the lines in a few places, but pretty happy with the colors. So I literally trace this right on top of a page of my handwriting, and I'm going to show you a different example here in a minute with this cute little canyon wren. And once I traced it, I used the Caran d'Ache Neocolor 2s and some water to create this beautiful, brightly colored wash of color on my cougar. I'd also put a wash of color with the Neo Color 2 on the background, and then I actually went in and wanted to push the lettering and that color back a little further so Mr. Cougar would pop here. So I just took some titanium white, the Amsterdam acrylic titanium white, and put that all over the top just to get my cougar to pop a little bit. But you could see that's not strictly necessary to do that, right? So here, well, my pattern took up a lot of the background, but I didn't use any paint. I didn't even use water on all the areas of the car into ash, so you can play with the effects to kind of create these sort of very colorful portraits, which are fun to create, and they end up being uniquely your own. So I'm just going to show you the process of how I did this. So one of the birds that Barry Lopez mentions in the story about the trip down the Grand Canyon is this beautiful little canyon wren, and these are literally little teeny tiny birds. So I'm going to go in on the back, and I'm just going to color, making sure I get the bird's whole body. My pencil needs to be sharpened. So I'm going to go both ways with my graphite. Make sure I get all these little feet in there. I think I did. So now I've got this graphite here, and I've got some writing that I did sitting in a coffee shop while I was away for the weekend. And one of the things that you can do, and I was writing just with a Papermate Ink Joy. They're not 100% water soluble, so they do bleed through a little bit, but you could use a precise pilot, let it dry really well, or a micron or any other permanent fine lighter if you don't want your ink to smear. And sometimes people like the way this looks, but they don't want anyone to read these words. So you can see where I started to kind of smush my lines together so that it's not really readable. So I might write about driving down the canyon. I feel awestruck by the towering walls carved by the raging river. And so I'm not paying too much attention here. I can write really messy or sloppy. I can also turn my page, and I'm just going to pretend to write to make this go a little faster. And I can do some pretend writing over the top, or I can actually, have my writing go in a lot of different directions. I could write in circles, but I'm still getting those nice original marks and things down in here by just adding even more lines and marks if you don't want people to read what it is that you're writing. One of the things that I've had fun doing is photographing or scanning a piece like this and then reducing it, making it smaller, and actually using it in one of my art journal spreads, or I used a couple of them in my 100-day project that I'm working on. So I'm going to use a blue pen just so that I can see where I'm drawing. And I'm going to put my little wren here. I love him so much. And I kind of I didn't color these rocks, but I am, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to, because I really kind of like the shapes of the rocks that he's sitting on too. And so I might want to add that to my design. So we're going to just see where we get. And then I can carefully pick up my page and just make sure. So you can see, I can see the line of the rocks here and the line of the rocks here. And then I'm just going to go, and I'm not trying to capture all the detail of the wren because I'm not trying to create a realistic portrait. But this whole idea of sort of creating your own graphite paper takes some of the fear out of I can't draw. It teaches you how to draw because you start to get the shapes of things right and the proportions of things right. I like his little wing there. And I'm going to just put some imaginary feather lines here where his chin and his breast are white. And I'm going to come in and capture his little clawed feet. And I did a lot of writing and scribbling, but you can still see the bird showing through. You could 100% draw the bird first, then do your handwriting, then add the color on top, but you cannot write over the top of the Caran d'Ache. They are very, very waxy, so that definitely would not work. But I had the thought that I'd love to do this little wren and then have him be able to cut him out and use him somewhere else. But I'm going to go in, and I like the where he was sitting on these rocks. This one I can't see as much, or maybe didn't draw, so I'm going to guess. And then I'm just coming in with this just happens to be an Identi-Pen. It's a little bit thicker black pen. Permapaque is one of my favorites to do this with. Or if you want those lines to be a little bit thinner, a Micron works really well. And he had this really dark eye. And I've got my little bit of feathers here. And I've got my feathers here. I'm not even trying to be exact. Remember, I'm trying to sort of just capture the sense of this sweet little wren without getting caught up in being too precise. Let's see if I can capture his little feet in there more or less. And there we have a super, super simple canyon wren. I'm going to exaggerate his nose just a little bit more. They are the sweetest little birds to watch. I'm noticing that he has these sort of nice stripes and patches, and maybe I want to add some of that before I add any of the color. Just give him a little bit of extra pattern. I think that rock was supposed to actually be up there. So, I've done a lot of scribbling. This is relatively intelligible, but even where I had my more normal handwriting, you can't really capture what was underneath the bird. And I'm thinking, because I do really love the colors of the canyon wren, that I'm actually going to keep him in these sort of same neutrals. But I'm going to start with this little bit of this bright orange in here. And let's see, got to get it way far away from me so I can see it. This one is sanguine or russet, which is really kind of the color that this sweetie pie tends to be. And I'm just putting in the colors and just kind of not trying to blend them too much. Maybe a little spot of the darker brown. And I love this kind of, I think this is the yellow ochre. What are they? Yeah, this is the ochre. Been kind of addicted to this goldy ochre color lately. And you notice I'm just sort of mixing them all together. And then I don't really want white for that chin. So I'm just going to give him a bright yellow chin, which, makes him a little less realistic, a little more playful. But he still kind of gives that same, he's got that happy, happy little bit of a wren shape. And then I can come in and maybe just add some texture and color in these grays to where he's sitting on these rocks. Got quite a few different shades of gray. See, some have a little more green, some have a little more brown. And there's two ways you can paint these guys that are super fun to paint. I'm feeling like I want to give him, let's get some of this dark blue in here. Again, adding that just little bit of the fantastical and the playful, not trying to make it too realistic. You can go over all of this with water, which is what I did with my cougar. I just used the colors, colored them just like this, and then just used my water brush, which is one of my favorite tools. And I love this, makes a great travel kit in your journal to be able to just have the Neo Color 2s and a water brush and a black pen and pencil. And you can do a lot of different things with those. But you can also use matte medium. And matte medium, excuse me, creates a really cool effect with these as well. And I'm going to go in up here, even though in the picture there's, kind of this gray in the background, but I'm going to land him. I'm not even trying to use my, sorry, got a little frog in my throat there. Not even trying to use the whole page, because again, like I said, I'm probably going to tear this out and do something different with it, maybe put it into part of an art journaling page. I may end up cutting the bird out completely. Grab a sip of water. I think what I love about this is also the idea that when we're working with morning pages or writing in our journals and we don't know how to incorporate our writing, it's a great way to incorporate our own writing into our journals. It's also a way to use up all those tons of journal pages that I fill that I love writing, but don't tend to go back and read. So you can see I'm just going right over the top of it, just letting it all kind of blend. So the matte medium ends up working like water to blend the colors. And then once it's completely dry, I can always go back in and add a little more uh, lightness, marks, etc., to different places on the bird if I decide that he just needs a little bit more color on him. So you can see still got a little bit of that orange and rust, almost like a little bit of sunset in there. That's okay. I'm just going to leave it there. You can see my ink is smearing just a little bit, which makes it even just a little bit less readable. But it just creates this interesting effect that makes it feel very much my own. I love working and drawing animals and working with animal symbolism of all kind. Just really makes me happy. So part of our whole relationship with landscape is to think about, in addition to us two-legged creatures, who lives in our landscape. So I'll do this bottom part with water just so that you can see I've got some dark colors in there. So this time I'm going to come in all the places where I've got that dark blues and grays, maybe even that little bit of purple in there. And super dark in here underneath the shadow of his tail. And then I'll come back into the lighter parts. If I don't want them to blend, right, I can move things around. And that those rocks ended up being a little bit more blue than I want, so I would just let this dry completely and then go back in with another layer or the Cairn Ash, or I'm thinking I could even go in here with some of my white paint to just to brighten those rocks up a little bit. And I'm just putting that right there on my page. But that wren is pretty darn stinking cute, if I say so myself. We just had a fun weekend away in Boulder to just get a different perspective and a different view, and did not see any canyon wrens. They're not always that easy to see, but we did see what's called an ouzel or a dipper, which live in the rivers in Colorado, which is this really fun bird that dives into currents and eddies and bobs along looking for bugs in the water. I love bird watching, by the way. It's probably one of those things I don't share with people a lot of the time, but I definitely enjoy. So you can see I've lost my sense that there's two boulders here. So I'm just going to come back in and add that here. And just like that, we have this sweet little colorful wren on our art journal page. And I can leave it like this. I could scan it and then use it in other art. Most of these just end up staying in my journals, or I will photograph them, scan them, reduce them, and use them in other work elsewhere so that I still have the originals. And again, I'm not trying to make it look 100% like this one, but because we use this beautiful photo, and this was in a photo that's in the common license, and I'll share the photographer in the classroom, we were able to capture this sweet little canyon wren. And imagine, just like Barry Lopez, this might be what we would be seeing if we were rafting down the Grand Canyon or hiking down to the bottom. We have seen canyon wrens here in Colorado, and they're super, super fun. So there's just a playful, easy way to get some of the animals that you might see in canyons into your art journal. Hope you have fun with this really simple activity, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys all in a couple of weeks for our April session. See you soon.